It's pretty sobering when you see the stats, isn't it? That huge chunk of new businesses, what is it, like maybe 90%?
Yeah, upwards of 90% in some reports within just the first few years.
Wow. It really makes you pause, if you're thinking about starting something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for you listening, you shared The Entrepreneur's Guide to Building a Successful Business by Jonathan T. Scott with us. And this deep dive, we're really focusing on why that happens.
And even more importantly, how to avoid being in that 90%.
Exactly. How to kind of tilt the odds your way.
And we really dug into Scott's guide here. What's great about it is it's not just theory.
Right.
It's practical. It's lessons learned the hard way by actual entrepreneurs, people who've been in the trenches.
Like getting advice from someone who's actually done it gives you a bit of a head start.
Precisely.
So our mission today is basically to unpack this guide, pull out those key crucial bits of knowledge, give you a solid understanding of the fundamentals. The idea is you walk away feeling well-informed.
And ready, hopefully, ready to tackle the challenges without feeling completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, because this guide, it covers a lot. From that first glimmer of an idea.
All the way through to keeping it going long term.
Okay, so let's jump in.
Sounds good. So, Gottlieb Duttweiler said it, the idea is the main thing.
Seems simple enough.
Well, yes and no. Because think about that statistic again. Most startups, they really struggle. They don't hit significant sales figures, not even in the first, say, 5 years.
So that initial idea, it's got to be more than just any idea.
It's absolutely critical. It kind of busts that myth that you just need passion and boom, success.
Yeah, the guide actually gives a pretty structured way to think about finding a good idea. It's almost like prompts for brainstorming.
It really is. It asks you to think back, like, what subjects did you actually enjoy in school?
Which seems like an odd place to start for a business, maybe.
But think about it. The guide gives examples. Like Harold Edgerton at MIT with the strobe light. Big companies didn't see the potential, right? So he worked with students, found industrial uses, or Hewlett-Packard.
Right, HP, Stanford grads.
Exactly. Started from their passion for electronics. Their first product even had a Disney connection, oddly enough. Shows how those early interests can spark something real.
Okay, so looking back is one angle. What else?
Looking around you right now. What needs aren't being met in your community?
Like Levi Strauss, seeing miners needed tougher pants.
Perfect example. A basic practical need. Or David McConnell, the book salesman. His little perfume freebies were more popular than the books.
And that became Avon, right?
That became Avon. It's about spotting those gaps.
What about ideas that are more, mission-driven?
Yeah, the guide touches on that too. Ideas that aim to make the world better. Anita Roddick and the Body Shop fighting animal testing.
A classic example.
Or Gail Borden, condensed milk. Huge impact on food safety back then.
Right.
Even Trevor Baylis's Clockwork Radio for places without power. These show that doing good can also be good business.
It's interesting how different the starting points can be. Simple observations or these big ideals.
And the guide also suggests looking at stuff that already exists.
Yeah.
Products or services you admire.
How does that work? Copying?
Not necessarily copying wholesale, but maybe adapting. Like Telepizza taking the Domino's model to Spain. A new market.
Okay, adapting.
Or improving. Faith Mountain Company. They used local knowledge about herbs and crafts for their mail order business. Found a niche and improved on what was available.
So adaptation and improvement.
But how do you know if any of these ideas are actually viable? The guide says, think about specific groups you get. Whose needs do you really understand?
Like Daniel Gerber with the baby food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His wife struggled pureeing food for their baby. He saw a massive unmet need. Or that pink taxi in Moscow for women concerned about safety. Very specific group, very specific need.
And this seems important. The guide warns against just running with a hunch, right?
Oh, absolutely. It calls them uninformed hunches. There's a cautionary tale in there about a gift shop owner. Invested big in tableware, just had a good feeling, no research.
No, let me guess. Didn't end well.
Did not end well. A real reminder that passion needs proof.
So it boils down to what? Two main things.
Basically, yeah. According to the guide, 1, is there a real demonstrated customer want? And 2, is there enough demand there for you to actually make a profit?
Got it. Want and enough demand to be profitable.
Without both, even the cleverest idea is on shaky ground, which naturally leads us straight into research.
Business research.
Okay.
So you think you have a good idea, now what? The guide really hammers this home, doesn't it?
Absolutely essential. It defines it clearly. It's a systematic way to gather info about your potential customers, your market.
And the goals are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, basically. Understand what customers really need, figure out if there's actually a decent market size, and get a good look at your competition. Who are they? What do they do well?
Okay, so how do you do the research? The guide breaks it down.
It does. It talks about different tools and makes this key distinction. Secondary versus primary data.
Secondary data. That's stuff that's already out there.
Exactly. Information someone else collected. Government reports, like the annual survey of manufacturers.
Okay.
Industry stats, reports from market research firms like Simmons. Stuff that gives you the big picture, maybe saves you some initial digging.
And the benefit there is it's often available, right? Saves time, maybe money.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But then there's primary data.
That's where you go out and get it yourself.
Right. Talking directly to potential customers, surveys, observations. And the guide is clear. This takes courage, time, effort. You got to get out there.
And the quality of that primary data, that depends on how you collect it, I guess.
Hugely. The guide has some great examples of bad questionnaire questions versus good ones. Like asking, wouldn't you agree a new Italian restaurant would be great here? That's leading.
Right. You're telling them the answer you want.
Exactly. Better to ask about their dining habits, what they like, what's missing, get their honest thoughts, not just confirmation of your own idea.
You want real insights, not just wishful thinking. So the guide gives a framework for doing this well.
Yeah, it emphasizes being really clear on your own objectives first. What do you need to find out? And being able to describe your business idea simply, that elevator pitch, it helps clarify your own thinking too.
Makes sense. What else?
Doing your own research. Even if you hire help, you need to understand your market intimately. Pilot studies are key too. Test your survey or questions on a small group first.
Iron out the kinks.
Exactly. And don't ignore the competition. Know how people see them. It's gold.
And costs. Does that come into research?
Definitely. The guide says you need to investigate costs early. What will it really cost to make your thing or deliver your service, including hidden stuff like insurance? Can't figure out profit without knowing the expenses.
Okay, so understand the market, understand the costs.
There's a neat anecdote in the guide about some Polish intellectuals. After the Berlin Wall fell, they went back to Poland. They noticed a baby boom that had happened years before, tied to a specific historical event. They saw an opportunity and successfully targeted that demographic.
Wow, that's being really observant of bigger trends.
It shows how opportunities can pop up if you're paying attention. But maybe the most crucial advice here,
What's that?
be willing to change your idea based on the research, or even walk away.
Oof, that's tough.
It is. But the guide quotes RP Holdings owner, negative results should be seen as an opportunity, not a threat. Powerful perspective.
So the research might tell you to start smaller or offer a different service.
Pivot completely. Knowing when to stick, when to tweak, when to fold, that's maybe one of the hardest calls for an entrepreneur.
Okay, so idea checked, research done. Now for the nuts and bolts of setting up. Location seems huge in the guide.
Absolutely critical for many businesses. Visibility and accessibility. If people can't find you easily or if it's inconvenient.
They'll go somewhere else. Simple as that.
Pretty much. And the guide lays out the options, starting at home, part-time or full-time.
Which has pros and cons.
Right. Tax advantages, maybe lower startup costs, but zoning restrictions, signage rules. Can you even have customers visit? Big questions.
What about actual premises, standalone versus like a mall?
Another trade-off. Standalone might mean potential ownership later, more control. Shopping center gives you foot traffic, usually, but higher rent and lease restrictions. What fits your business best?
So things to weigh up. What factors apply to any location?
The guide lists several. Local economy, is it growing? Construction nearby, good or bad sign? Area's reputation. How do customers arrive, car or foot? Parking, public transport.
And your neighbors, other businesses.
Yeah, can they have draw your crowd or do they clash? It all matters.
Any standout advice from the pros on location?
2 things jump out from the guide. 1, don't be afraid to pay a bit more for a really good spot. The extra traffic can be worth it. And 2, keep your place looking good. Customers avoid messy or rundown looking businesses. Image counts.
Right. So location's sorted. What about getting the stuff you need to sell or make?
Suppliers?
Yeah, the supply chain. The guide gives a very methodical approach. Step 1, define exactly what you need. Materials, components, packaging, everything.
Be specific.
Very specific. And understand minimum order quantities. Suppliers have different thresholds. You need to know that for planning. Then research potential suppliers. Ask for samples. Check their references.
Visit them.
If you can, definitely. See their operation firsthand. And crucially, check their credit references too.
Makes sense. It's about building relationships too, isn't it? Not just transactions.
Hugely important. The guide stresses cultivating good rapport with reliable, honest suppliers. Pay on time, communicate openly. They can be amazing sources of information about the industry.
Good suppliers are partners, really. Okay, shifting gears slightly, business models. The guide talks about this.
It touches on it. Briefly mentions lean thinking versus maybe a more traditional approach.
Right.
But the core idea is how you create and capture value.
And it contrasts just selling, focused on the transaction, with a sales and service approach. That focuses on the benefit to the customer.
Like the Dow chemical example in the guide.
Exactly. They move from just selling chemicals to managing the whole process for clients' application, disposal, focusing on the total solution, the end benefit. It's a shift from product to service.
That implies being able to adapt your model, though.
Which is key. The guide talks about that balance. Persistence versus stubbornness. When do you stick? When do you change?
It mentions New Toke, right, as a warning.
Yeah. Even with tons of research, they missed the boat on customer loyalty, the emotional connection.
And a Big Mac.
Kind of the opposite story. Initial reaction inside McDonald's wasn't great, apparently, but they were open to trying it. Shows you need to be open to ideas, even if they seem strange at first.
So research helps, a good model helps, but no guarantees.
Absolutely none. Markets change, customers change. You have to stay alert, stay flexible. That's the recurring theme.
Okay, practical stuff again. Naming the business. Seems simple, but probably isn't.
The guide has good tips. Easy to say and remember. Relevant to what you do. Ideally. Unique.
And available legally.
Crucial. Check trademarks, domain names, and avoid names that might confuse people or promise something you don't deliver.
Right. And other startup tasks. Little things.
Yeah, the checklist stuff. Logo design. Getting a proper business address and phone number looks more professional.
Yeah.
Separate bank account, vital for tracking finances. Basic website, even if you don't sell online yet. Business cards, stationery.
Builds that professional image.
Exactly. It all adds up.
And finally, for this setup phase, bookkeeping and finance basics.
The guide introduces essential terms. Audits, balance sheets, break-even point, cost of goods sold. It even gives the formula for cost of goods sold.
KGS, important number.
Very. And inventory management balancing, having enough stock with not tying up too much cash. A tricky balance.
And getting funding, if you need it.
The advice is, cast a wide net. Explore all options. Don't get discouraged by no's. Learn from them. Try lenders who know your industry.
What about grants?
Mentioned as non-repayable funds, often from universities or government bodies. Worth looking into. And SBA loans in the U.S. get a brief mention too.
The overall message seems to be creative, mix and match funding if needed.
Yes, and some pro tips here too. Build a relationship with your banker before you desperately need money.
Good advice.
Do your homework on exactly how much you need and why, and watch the small expenses. They can kill your cash flow if you're not careful.
Okay, foundation laid. Now, the big one. Staying afloat. Avoiding failure. The guide lists. 13 main reasons businesses fail.
Yeah, 13. And what's interesting is how many are internal, things you can potentially control.
Big number one.
Inadequate planning, no clear roadmap, right alongside that. Underestimating the commitment. This isn't 9 to 5 usually. It's a lot.
And cash flow. Always hear about that.
A major killer.
Yeah.
The guide suggests things like consolidating loans, even bartering sometimes, to manage cash. Poor management is another big one.
How so?
The guide stresses hiring for attitude and desire to work, not just skills on paper. You want people who want to be there.
Makes sense. What else? Not understanding customers.
Absolutely critical. You have to talk to them, ask their opinions. The guide mentions a gym asking people which of 2 ads they preferred simple direct feedback.
Staffing problems in general.
Addressed by recommending thorough background checks. And inflexibility, being too rigid when the market shifts, that's a danger zone.
Poor marketing. Not being able to sell.
Yep, major factors. Great products don't sell themselves. You need basic marketing know-how. And related to that, relying too heavily on one big customer. Risky. Or ignoring your competition.
Pretending they don't exist doesn't work.
Not for long. Resisting new ideas, getting stuck in your ways. That's another one. Pricing problems too, especially undercharging.
Charging, really?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, but it erodes your margins and can make people question your quality. Then there's poor location, which we covered.
Right.
Lack of capital, running out of money. And finally, growing too fast, overexpansion before you have the systems and resources to handle it.
Wow, that's quite a list of potential pitfalls.
It is, but knowing them is the first step to avoiding them, right?
True. So building on that, let's talk more about marketing. The guide really stresses this.
Absolutely. That idea that if you build it, they will come, not always true. You need marketing. It introduces the marketing mix concept,
The P's.
often called the 7 Ps now. Product, place, price, promotion, people, physical environment, processes, a whole framework.
Okay. And within that, promotion is key.
Definitely. The promotion mix includes things like advertising, personal selling, sales promotions, public relations. Each has upsides and downsides.
Like advertising. Reaches lots of people, but
Can be expensive and might miss your target if you're not careful.
Sure.
Personal selling builds relationships, but needs a sales team, which costs money.
sales promotions discounts, offers.
Good for a quick boost, but can train customers to wait for deals. PR builds credibility, but you have less control over the message.
So what's the advice for effective marketing?
Focus on benefits, not just features. Track your ad spending what's actually working. Make ads easy to read, create curiosity, build a mailing list. Use social media, but thoughtfully.
Don't just jump on every platform.
Right. Leverage things like grand openings, maximize in-store promotions if you have a physical space, and critically, build that customer database.
Yep.
Understand who buys what, when.
Is there a story about this in the guide? Beating bigger competitors?
Yeah, a small business owner who couldn't afford big ad campaigns, what did they do? Focused intensely on personal contact, community involvement, building relationships one by one.
So high touch beats high spend sometimes.
It absolutely can, especially for smaller businesses. That personal connection matters.
Okay, let's talk people, your team. Getting the most from employees starts with training.
Yes, and the guide points out this paradox. Owners know training is vital, but feel they don't have time for it.
Leading to more time fixing mistakes later.
Often, yes. The guide mentions different methods.
Yeah.
On-the-job mentoring, learning by watching,
Yeah.
modeling. The point is, investing in training pays off.
And job evaluations, not just for criticism.
No. Framed as communication tools, a chance to talk about performance, goals, development, improve things together.
Understanding motivation seems key too. The guide mentions a theory.
McClellan's theory of needs. Achievement, power, affiliation. People are driven by different mixes of these. Understanding that helps you tailor work to motivate individuals.
Interesting. What about delegation?
Key principles outlined. It's not just dumping tasks. It's giving responsibility and the authority to figure out how to do it. Empowerment.
Empowering employees leads to better results.
The guide suggests it fosters motivation and better customer service. It asks, basically, would you rather work for a company that trusts you or one that micromanages? Which one likely treats customers better?
Good question. And feedback.
Crucial. Both positive reinforcement, catching people doing things right, and constructive feedback for growth. Regular, specific feedback.
Okay, shifting slightly again. Networking, not just going to events.
No, the guide talks about cooperative networking, partnering with other businesses.
How does that work? Competing businesses.
Not necessarily direct competitors, more like complementary businesses. Sharing resources, maybe marketing costs, finding synergies. It's about partnership, not giving away trade secrets.
It requires trust, though.
Absolutely. Trust is the foundation for that kind of cooperation.
As a business grows, you can't just keep selling the same thing forever, right?
Yeah.
New products.
Exactly. You have to adapt to changing tastes. The guide provides a whole process for bringing new products or services to market.
Starts with the idea, then research again.
Yep. Idea generation, market research, then defining the product specs, figuring out if you can make it, costing it, developing the marketing plan,
Distribution capacity.
consumables if needed, testing, and then monitoring it after launch. It's a cycle.
How do you know if a new product is working?
Look at the data. Cash register receipts tell a story. And ask customers directly, what do they think? What else do they wish you offered? Keep asking.
What about going bigger, like international? Does the guide cover that?
Briefly, mentions reasons why you might expand overseas. Different ways to do it. Exporting directly or indirectly, joint ventures, licensing, franchising.
Requires a whole new plan, though.
Definitely. An overseas strategic marketing plan. Do you standardize your approach or adapt it for each market? Big question. Understanding foreign markets, cultures, vital.
Get help for that.
Advised. Government agencies, export trade companies can offer support.
Okay, one last big topic, sustainability.
Yeah.
Seems very relevant now.
Increasingly so. The guide frames it not just as an environmental issue, but a business opportunity.
How so? Cost savings.
That's part of it. Efficiency often goes hand in hand with sustainability, but also developing new, greener products, new technologies, responding to customer demand for responsible practices.
It mentions the U.S. Clean Air Act.
Has an example of how regulation, well, maybe initially resisted, can actually drive innovation and efficiency, often at lower costs than predicted. And environmental laws are increasing globally. It's becoming part of the business landscape.
So, thinking about the whole guide, this deep dive, what really stands out as we wrap up?
For me, it's that constant theme of research and understanding. Your market, your customers, your costs. Know your stuff.
Yeah, that came through loud and clear. Not just upfront research, but ongoing. And really listening to customers.
Absolutely. That feedback loop is critical. And maybe the importance of relationships with your team, suppliers, customers.
Yeah.
Business is fundamentally about people.
And being ethical, that seemed important too.
Building trust, it pays off long term.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Starting a business, it's probably not about dodging every bullet. Failure is, well, part of the learning curve for many.
It's about resilience, maybe, learning, adapting.
Exactly. So think about this. What challenge in your own idea, the thing that seems like the biggest hurdle, could that actually hold the key to what makes it unique or successful?
Interesting question.
While this guide, Scott's Guide, gives a fantastic foundation, remember the best entrepreneurs. They're the ones who never stop learning, right? They keep adapting to whatever the market throws at them.
Constant learning, constant adapting.
So what's your next step going to be to deepen your understanding? The world of business is always changing. We really hope this deep dive gave you some useful insights.
Keep exploring those ideas.
Keep learning and keep building.